think about framing reality rather than what we see oftentimes in media. Since September 11, 2011, which you know is a major kind of moment in this country's modern day history. I don't know where you were on that day. It was always the question we say, where were you on that day, right, when that happened? But I know for me, my vocation, it changed my whole career. Because days after that, I was in a prayer vigil with Muslims in Philadelphia at a Christian church, Presbyterian church, hearing their stories, hearing stories of Hindu shop owners in 7-Elevens around the suburbs who were vandalized and beat up, and nobody did anything to help them during that time. And you know, that, I think that just shifted my whole thinking. But here's the fact: since that event, even though we hear a lot to the contrary on TV and other outlets, nearly twice as many people have been killed in this country by white supremacists, anti-government fanatics, and other non-Muslim extremists than by radical Muslims. Twice as many people. So what we see in the media is, of course, you've already heard, Islam is coming to take over. It's going to be Sharia law right now in Philadelphia. What are we going to do? Oh no, another mosque went up. We're in trouble, right? The facts are there in front of you. That the extremism since 9/11 hasn't been from Muslims in this country. Facts show that they've actually come from the other side, from white supremacist groups. So, I give you some examples of these groups because I think it is important to know, because they use names that look really great, and oftentimes they will use code words, pictures that incite good feelings inside a lot of people, patriotic feelings. Some of these groups are Global Rally for Humanity. Sounds really pretty, doesn't it? American Defense League, American Freedom Initiative, Bare Naked Islam, and Jihad Watch. Those are two of the ones that are a little bit more obvious about what they're doing. For example, the American Freedom Initiative. I want you to look at this, this little picture here of the faces. This is what the Interfaith Center was able to do by raising hundreds of thousands of dollars this past year when the American Freedom Initiative, headed by Miss Geller, whose first name we forget, but her last name is Geller. She's famous in the fact that she's raised millions of dollars for this organization, which is completely anti-Muslim. And they bought $30,000 to $40,000 of contracts with SEPTA. So their plan was, during Passover last year, when Jews and Christians and Muslims would all be doing various things, because their religions coincide, of course, they were going to put these ads that were really, really bad. There was one with Hitler equating Muslims with Hitler and killing Jews and bad stuff. Even for Jews, like the Jews in Philadelphia were in an uproar about these ads too, and they were anti-Islam. So what happened is, so as part of this, the Interfaith Center talked to SEPTA and said, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? And SEPTA originally tried to pull the ads. But back to the First Amendment, which is really important. SEPTA made a mistake. Because when they tried to do that, again, what did the courts tell them? No way. They're buying this contract from you. You have posted other commercials that were controversial on your buses. They weren't particularly religious, they were political, right? So how can you now say to this group that's paying for this that you won't use their ads? And they were completely right. So the Interfaith Center said, okay, so now we have to respond. So we went on this big campaign, we raised thousands of dollars from all over New York, Philadelphia, and other places, and we were able to put this billboard, it was a digital billboard on the Schuylkill Expressway, as a way of saying, this is how we're going to fight that. And it worked, because Mayor Nutter took notice and supported it and held a rally in front of the Liberty Bell to address this. So even before the ads were released on the buses, the mayor of Philadelphia was addressing crowds of people talking about the Interfaith Center and this billboard. So what happened? When the ads got on the buses, nobody cared. There was no uproar. There was, in fact, most people probably don't even know about it because this organization, the American Freedom Initiative, failed because their point was to try to initiate. They tried to initiate some, vitriolic response among But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So it diffused it. Another example is this group called Not in Our Town. Just Google it, it's easy, it's NIOT.org, Not in Our Town. And it's a movement in which towns, suburbs, city people get together and say, we are not going to allow this to happen in our town. So if there is something that happens like a vandalism event in a mosque, or there's anti-Semitic symbols in a school, they have already a group put together that's not in our town. And they get together and they hold town meetings and they combat these issues with love and cooperation and social service, etc. It's a movement that's happening all over the United States, and it's amazing. Like, it's really, it's just such a positive thing. So I invite you to sort of check that out. What I want to just circle back to, though, is as we talk about Islamophobia and religious intolerance, we cannot ignore social media. So I think, to your point, Dean, about how things have really changed since the 60s. But I wanted you to share that because you're right, also what you said, that we have circled back, almost gone backwards now. And one of the reasons that I will argue, and some other people are arguing right now, why we have circled back, is because before, when we had, prejudice or bigotry, right, it was more of like this, right? So you'd have groups like this that would get together and they would talk about it, and they would, sort of spout their hate speech, and maybe they would make signs, and maybe they would vandalize. But we didn't have Twitter, and we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have the ability to write something, and in a second, less than a second actually, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people could see it, copy it, and give it to more hundreds of thousands of millions of people. And that is what has happened. When Twitter, and look, I love both of these things, both of these platforms, so this is not against them, but social media craze has actually changed the way that hate speech and rhetoric is. People can be anonymous even now on blogs when they comment. Look, I'm not saying you should do it because it's probably not healthy to do it all the time, but I do it once in a while just to put my finger on the pulse of things. So, I'm going to let her sort of do it.